Self-management, which relates to things like centering, getting back in your belly breathing, slowing your breathing, slowing down your walk, getting to a place in your body where you can have a rhythmic swing, where your timing and tempo is on, so that you can make a better shot next time. Most of us go the other way. We speed up and we're nervous and we're freaking out and we're trying to, make up for that bad shot, and it only makes it worse. So it's about the self-management that goes on to minimize the damage from a poor shot or from a penalty or whatever, from getting in trouble. Because that stuff's going to happen, but it's how we handle it, right? The big question of how do we handle adversity and not make it worse.
Golf Smarter number 775. Our goal for 2021, boring golf. With our golf sensei, Jamie Zimron.
This is Golf Smarter. Sharing stories, tips, and insights from great golf minds to help you lower your score and raise your golf IQ. Here's your host, Fred Green.
Welcome back to the Golf Smarter podcast, Jamie.
Thank you, Fred. I'm so happy to be back here and talking with you and talking with your golfing audience.
Thank you. Happy New Year to you.
It is. We made it. It looks like we made it. That's been my line. It looks like we all made it to 2021.
It looks like we made it to 2021.
Most of us, unfortunately. Yeah, not all of us.
We don't know what's going to happen next.
We don't.
Don't predict anything.
Yeah. Well, I just really want to honor all those who really didn't quite make it and
of course,
who are working so hard for all of us. So, yeah, we do need to acknowledge that. And we are in a new year and some new energies and new possibilities.
A century ago, it was called the Roaring 20s. I'm ready for the boring 20s.
Oh, I'll take boring. We're roaring, but not in the joyful way, unfortunately.
No, I would love to have the boring 20s at this point. Let's just forget all the... Okay, enough of the drama.
Wait, I have to tell you, I always say, I am a pretty colorful person. I like to wear colorful clothes. I'm not a boring person, but I like boring golf. Give me fairways and greens. Keep me out of trouble. I actually have always said that. I do like boring golf in that regard.
Well, you have to explain to me, what is boring golf?
I guess we could say fairways and greens, straight down the middle, not getting in too much trouble. So I guess Phil Mickelson's the not boring golfer, Bubba, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of fun stuff, and make these dramatic shots, and I mean, they're going to happen. Golfers are going to miss the fairway. We're going to get in some trouble. But for the most part, I really like to drive it in the fairway. I like to get it on the green. I like to get it in the hole. So that's boring golf to me.
Sure.
Which, in a sense, I call it centered golf, which is being in the middle, right? And making that sweet spot contact and, just not getting in so much trouble, not being... the rough, okay, so we're not going to make perfect centered contact all the time, but I'd rather be a little bit in the rough or the first cut than over there in the woods or out of bounds.
That makes a lot of sense. I actually have noticed that when I'm playing my best, when my scores are at their lowest, I'm having the most fun. I'm taking the least amount of shots, but you talk about boring, it's like, I'm not even sure exactly what I'm trying to say.
Well, think of the words. Just think of the wording. Not boring golf is scrambling, right? So you can make a par by scrambling. It's just hard to scramble all the time. Scrambling sounds like, you're climbing over the rocks. It's not that easy. That's not boring, scrambling. Being in the rough, pulling off. Pulling it out of that all the time. You can do that once in a while, and it's a lot of fun when you do that kind of drama, and when you're successful, it can be a lot of fun. But as a steady diet, it's exhausting, and you just can't play a whole round of golf or, say, a few rounds of golf, a whole tournament when you're just scrambling all the time, or you're not in the fairway, and you've got to keep making it up, right?
Yeah.
And you'll hear that. You'll hear pros talking about it. They have a good round usually when they're pretty, in a sense, it's kind of boring, right? Mm-hmm. They're not having to scramble all the time. They're not having to pull it out of their hats. And certainly when we're in the rough, we're in trouble. That's the other word, right? We're in trouble and out of bounds. You just can't do that in a sustainable way. once in a while, but it's not sustainable. So I guess boring golf is more sustainable, and it's what I call energy conservation. Yeah, you kind of conserve your energy. You're not exhausted though. Yeah, oh God. And that lasts, right? You can get through 18 holes and keep it together. I'll tell you something else. I remember being at the PGA show some years ago in Orlando, and I happened to hear, I forget who I was talking about. Oh, it was Dave Pelz, actually. And he was talking about a serendipitous finding as they were going through Tour Pros scorecards from tournaments. And the serendipitous finding was that a lot of the times they discovered that there was a blow-up hole. And the pros had blow-up holes less often than amateurs. So Obviously. They started looking at amateur cards, right? And they're comparing that. And that amateur cards had a lot more blow-up holes, what they call disaster holes. So they formulated a whole approach to better golf called disaster management. And that was to have fewer blow-up holes and have the blow-up be not so high. So maybe you doubled and you didn't, get a snowman or something like that, right? And and if you think about it, that's really true. So boring golf would be a clean card, shall we say, that doesn't have those big blow up holes that can sink a really good round or destroy a tournament if you're playing competitively, or if you're a tour pro, destroy the tournament, destroy your paychecks.
I've had multiple conversations with people that, felt like they were going to make the tour someday in their life, or they were, prepping to get themselves to the tour, and that they discovered that really they weren't, and the word that I keep hearing is they didn't do well at grinding it out. Being
there
grinders.
You go. Right.
And that it just took too much of an emotional toll on them week in and week out to try and, try to get to boring golf. The disaster management was such that it was just exhausting.
Right. Disaster management takes a toll, and the emotional toll, the amount of energy, as we were saying, I was talking about energy management. You're just conserving energy when you're playing more down the middle. Yeah. And, not having to pay a toll emotionally, energetically. In a sense, we could say that not boring golf, drama golf, turns into depressing golf and draining golf. Drains your energy, and you can get pretty depressed. You have a great round, but oh man, if it weren't for that triple, yeah, that blow up hole, yeah. So that can get kind of depressing, and we can't really. That's what I mean. That's not sustainable, and that takes the joy out of the game. So, and I know. That's why I say I actually enjoy boring golf. It is such a delight to be, getting your drives in play and hitting the greens and not having to scramble and chip it up, get it up and down all the time or whatever. Two putts, that would be pretty boring. Yeah. I mean, if I have two putts all the way around and a one putt here and there, as opposed to, 5 3-putts and maybe one putt. And I'm worried, can I even make my two putts? That gets really draining.
Mm-hmm. I think that's what's drained me more than anything is putting. And I get, and then the knees start rattling when I get over the 4-footers.
Right.
That my playing partners are going, nope, you got to put that one in. It's like, really? You're not going to let me have? Nope. And you know why they do that is because I do that to them all the time. It's like, oh, no. I've seen Phil Mickelson miss this 2-footer. You got to make that. Well, it's come back to get me because now they make me do every putt.
Well, I'll give you a little different spin on boring golf.
Okay.
And I will call it's what I call in my centered golf, Ki golf world, I call it StressLess Golf.
Okay.
So, and I actually do a lot of corporate speaking. I work with CEOs and leaders on stress less, prosper more. Stress management. And stress management actually underlies peak performance. It underlies conflict management and reducing reactivity, emotional reactivity, and kind of losing your mental clarity, your decision making. All that goes into course management if we look at it in golf terms. So, or in putting, what's a stress-less putting? You got your lag putt up there, so it's fairly much a tap in. You're not having the knee knocker 3-4 footers. And then missing too many of them. So now you're really kind of losing it, right? And when you're over your putts, both the longer putt, the lag putt, and the short putt, pretty soon you can't do any of it, and you're three putting too much, and it's drains your energy, right? Mm-hmm. So I would call it stress less. And when we're down the middle, when we're playing the centered way, that's a stress less way to be, and it allows us to keep our mind working well. It allows us to keep our self-talk that's going on in there, which is part of the mental game, and keep our self-talk more positive and more productive, and to keep our emotions in a higher place. So how's that stress-less golf?
I like stress-less golf. I like boring golf too.
And boring golf. Well, I think we just came out of 2020, which was talk about a stress more year. Yeah. Oh my God. And that's what people kind of can't take it anymore. And it's not letting up yet. We've also actually kind of had more drama in the first week of this year. So we're not there yet. And I think the high stress of recent times and current times is kind of getting to people. I think we're all kind of longing for a bit more boring or stress less.
I know what we need more of.
What's that?
Commercials. We'll be right back after this.
Okay.
Okay, Jamie, I'm really curious to know about, I want to talk about blow-up holes. Okay. And what we should, I don't know if the word expect, because that's something we just talk about all the time, is to not have expectations, but everybody's going to have blow-up holes. And it's the amount of blow-up holes you have in a round which could really dictate how good or bad a day it is, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what should we, here's that word again, what should we expect based on our index on how many blow-up holes around we're going to have?
Well, that gets into math problems. And I'm not going to do the math on, relative to your handicap, how many blow-up holes, how high are those holes going to be. But I think that what we, at any level, any handicap, I think one of the things that I certainly try to teach everybody and work with everybody on is their self-management. Most of the time we talk about course management. Course management actually comes down to self-management, because how you manage yourself really goes into your course management. So how does that relate to blow-up holes? Let's say you get off the tee badly, right? You may be in a bad spot. You're behind trees, and you've got to manage. You want to get out as far as you can, get closer to the green or get on the green, and it's just really not feasible. Can you calm yourself down enough and have some clarity and go, you know what, I might be better off to just chip this out over there to the fairway or whatever, and then go for the green after that. And I may be able to get my par out of it or my bogey, whatever, depends what level you're at, get in position so that I can make what's my par actually relative to my handicap. Because, if you think about it, I always tell people, if you played bogey golf, you'd shoot 90 all the time. There aren't that many golfers who shoot 90 all the time. So what if you played bogey golf as your par, yeah? Mm-hmm. But or double bogey golf is 108. There's a lot of people playing their handicaps 108, right? And if they shoot 104, that's a good day. And so how do you manage when you do maybe hit your drive offline or your second shot, whatever, or you get in trouble or you've got penalty shots already because you lost your ball or you went out of bounds. The question is, how do you manage that so that you can get back in play and minimize the damage, right? The whole question is minimizing the damage if you happen to have an errant shot, which happens a lot, right? Or a rub of the green. You landed in a divot in the middle of the fairway. That happens. You got buried. You got behind a tree or something. So it's about minimizing the damage. And unfortunately, most people maximize the damage because their self-management is poor. So, they know they're kind of in trouble. They're so upset about the shot they just hit or the putt they just hit. And so then they speed up and then they, and then their adrenaline's going. Now their hands are shaking a little bit. Their heart's pumping too fast. Their mind is like, their brain function has moved back down to limbic brain from their prefrontal cortex. They're not thinking so clearly. This is what happens. So self-management, which relates to things like centering, getting back in your belly breathing, slowing your breathing, slowing down your walk, getting to a place in your body where you can have a rhythmic swing, where your timing and tempo is on, so that you can make a better shot next time. Most of us go the other way, right? We speed up and we're nervous and we're freaking out and we're trying to, make up for that bad shot, and it only makes it worse. So it's about the self-management that goes on to minimize the damage from a poor shot or from a penalty or whatever, from getting in trouble, because that stuff's going to happen, but it's how we handle it, right? The big question of how do we handle adversity and not make it worse.
Well, yeah, I think that's been a theme that we've been running through for years on Golf Smarter is how do we minimize the damage, and how, when the damage occurs, how do we handle ourselves? Right.
Well, I talk about energy a lot, and that's because what really makes your golf ball go is you and your energy, right? And so when we're tense and tight, a lot of the energy stays in our bodies. It slows down our swing speed. That slows down our club head and our impact. And so then we lose distance, or maybe we're tense and tight, and so that affects the position of the club at impact. Our grip is so tight. And then we're slicing, or we're, hooking, or we're not hitting it straight down the middle. So that's part of energy management. And one of the really interesting things about energy is it has measurable frequency. Scientists, they can measure frequency at a cellular level in our bodies. And it turns out that when we have negative thinking, the measurable frequency in our brain cells is a lower number than when we're having positive thoughts. So the power of positive thinking, like I've asked myself, where's the power in positive thinking? It's in that higher frequency. And the same is true for emotions. Not to get too esoteric here, but the Buddhists actually ranked emotions, higher and lower emotions. You had base emotions compared to higher emotions, which are serenity, tranquility, peace, joy, love, understanding, oneness, unity. Those are higher emotions than our kind of human ego emotions, sad, mad, afraid. Those are, and they have a measurable frequency at a cellular level. So what happens is, this is why I call my golf psychology rising to lower scores. Because what happens is when we start doing poorly and, moving towards blow-up holes, we go into lower frequencies. We negative thinking, the baser emotions, physically you can see the body language slumps and all of that. We get bummed out, or we get all like tight and angry and fighting and imposing ourselves on things. It doesn't, on the golf course, doesn't work. So we fall to lower scores. So my thing is, he or she who knows how to rise to lower scores, bring our thinking back up, bring our emotions back up. We need to get in that more calm, positive place. Excuse me, a little water here. So I hope that makes sense. So he or she who knows how to bring themselves back to this higher frequency, they're going to rise to lower scores instead of fall to higher scores.
Interesting.
Isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And it brings me to something you and I have had conversations about before, and that's inspired golf. But then conversely, right? I mean, should we start at the other side before we get to inspired golf to try to understand it better?
Well, you'll like this. I can't really quite say this on air, but I'll leave everybody, you and the listeners, to understand. I call, when we fall to lower frequencies, it's a mode of playing and a mode of being that I call SDF. S being the start of a swear word, D being the start of a swear word, and F being the start of a swear word. So I won't say them out loud, but
you
get
can
it?
Go ahead and say them. I'll bleep them.
All right, you can bleep them, but okay, SDF is, I'll say it real fast, sort of mode, right? Okay, so...
Oh, yeah. The woulda, shoulda, coulda in swear words.
Yeah. Well, yeah, right. And think about it. It's so easy to get into SDF mode. And as opposed to what my father, Dale Carnegie, called PMA mode, positive mental attitude. So if you just want a few things, it's like we need to be able to shift when we need to notice that we're in SDF. And then we need to know that we need to shift out of there. Where do we shift to? PMA, or we could call it the zone. So it's like, oh, look at where I am. Oh, that's not where I'm going to hit my best shots. That's not where I'm going to make my timing, tempo, rhythmic, centered, sweet spot contact swings. Those are the ones we need to make. And so we need to calm the nervous system. We need to calm that sort of stress reactivity that causes us to make bad decisions, to have negative self-talk, to be a negative, low-frequency emotion. And when we are able to do that, we literally calm our nervous system. We move from sympathetic to parasympathetic. We're calm and we're rational and we're in rhythm. We can make the swings that we know how to make when we're not sort of under the influence of SDF, which is, stress reactivity, basically. Mm-hmm. So that's a way to look at the mental game, but from a very holistic perspective of how the mind, body, emotions work, because that's what's producing the golf swing, so that we're delivering our energy into the golf ball and we're delivering our positive energy. That's also why this energy conservation is an important matter. We are leaking energy all the time in our negative thoughts and our SDF feelings. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. And we're going to take another break. Be right back. Jamie, a minute ago, I think I wrote this down right, that you said bad decisions lead to negative self-talk. Is that what you said?
No, I think that poor decision-making, a negative thought process, negative emotions, they're kind of intertwined. And so I don't know that one leads to the other, but it's like when we fall into those kind of negative emotions, low frequency emotions, our self-talk is very negative. It's like, you idiot, you're so bad. What'd you do that for? You're terrible, or, oh my God, I know I'm going to screw up this shot. I know I'm going to yank it or shank it, or,
put it in the water.
I know I'm going to miss this putt.
I put it in the water here every time.
Yeah, exactly. That sort of thing. So that's the negative self-talk, and it doesn't produce better swings and it doesn't produce better decisions. And so what happens, let's say, we're going to make the best make a poor shot or get a bad bounce or we end up in trouble. Yeah, it happens. Mm-hmm. Nobody bats 1,000, right? And this is the question. That's the adversity. How do you deal with it? If you fall into negative self-talk. Oh man, you're so bad. What'd you do that for? God, why'd you follow through? Why'd you leave the face open and look where you are now? And oh man, I'm sure it's going to get worse. God, look at where I am and I can't make this shot. And how am I ever going to pull my par out or my bogey out? Or, you know what I mean? It's like, that's the self-talk. And it just kind of, we sort of self-stress, put it that way. We cause ourselves stress. Literally, we produce more adrenaline, we produce more cortisol, and pretty soon our heart's pounding and we're shaking and our hands are a little bit wet and we can't grip the club very well, or we hold it too tight because we're stressing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's that negative self-talk actually produces self-stress. And what we need to do is know how to not cause ourselves that. That's what a master is able to do. And so we want to have more self-mastery, more control over our emotions and our self-talk and our thoughts, so that we can keep bringing ourselves back to this more centered, calm, high-frequency place. And remember, we rise to lower scores. And when we're in that sort of higher place, we're calmer, we're more centered, we're more rhythmical. We have more mental clarity. We have greater emotional intelligence. So we make better decisions. And ultimately, when we make better swings, that leads to better scores, better shots, better scores.
I'm caught up on this idea of bad decisions because it's getting me thinking about the higher scores, bad holes, bad shots are not swing mechanics.
Usually not.
They're usually, I know when I look back on a round, it's not like, I topped the ball. I lifted my head. That's not what I'm looking at. It's like, I picked the wrong club there. Or, you know, it's just like bad decisions really can have a great impact on your round.
Oh, completely. And the thing is, when we talk about staying in the moment or playing every shot, it's really true because it's like, right, what's the most important shot in golf? This one. The one you're making right now. And you need to make the best decision in that situation, in that moment. But how often we're still hung up on, you know, how we screwed up the whole 3 holes to go or
that 3-putt on the last hole.
Yeah. And oh my God, I've got to par the next 3 because, you know, and you're thinking ahead and because God, that 15th hole's coming up and I always yank my drive on that hole or, oh, there's water there or, I've always blown up on the 16th hole and you're only on the 10th hole, you know, but you're worried about it. And then you're pressuring yourself for what you do from 10 to 15 because 16's coming up, you know, you're in the future. It's like, we're not in the moment and we have to make the best decision, in the position we're in that we just hit that drive or just hit that second shot. You know, what are you going to do now? And we have to play that shot and in the best way we can to have the best outcome. The only thing you can think a little bit ahead about is, well, I'm in trouble here, and what side of the fairway do I need to knock this out on so that I'll have a good angle to the green? I mean, you might think ahead in that way. It's like, you know, the strategicness of playing that hole. Mm-hmm. But that's really all, that's as far ahead of yourself as you can get, in my opinion, you know. So that's the old playing here and now. And you know, you're talking about swing mechanics. I always give the example of, say it's a par 3, right? It's 150 yards from tee to green. Fine, you know, it's just a bunch of grass in between. Fine, make your swing, hit your shot. Oh, it's 150 yards par 3. Oh, look there's a water hazard right in front of the green. And look at those deep bunkers on, you know, and oh, there's one in the back if I go too long and there's one in the right and there's trees on the left. And all of a sudden that 150 yards looks real different and it affects, we let ourselves get affected by that. So, you know, our swing isn't the same. Was it swing mechanics that changed on that 150-yard par 3 shot to the green, or was it your emotions and your mind that changed, which changes your biochemistry and your heart rhythm, and all of a sudden the swing is different? So it's really not swing mechanics.
No. Are bad decisions generally based in ego?
I think I mean, ego, what's the ego?
In the sense of
based in fear. I think they're based in fear.
Oh, okay. I was thinking like, you know, a bad decision is, I'm in the trees, but I can see the flag, so I'm going to go for it, which you're going to lead to yourself to a double bogey as opposed to putting it in the fairway and hitting a bogey, right? Yeah.
Well, you know, it's around risk reward, say in that situation, and being able to think clearly. Put it that way, think clearly about the risk reward, right? Or let's say you've got, it depends on the situation. Let's say you've got a 25-foot downhill putt that breaks, and I mean, are you going to are you putting to make that putt or to get it up close? But it also depends on the situation. Let's say it's match play and it's to win the hole and it's important, you know, that you get in. So that one, maybe you're going to putt to get in, right? You know you have to make that putt, so you putt to make it. There's other situations where the better decision is just get it up there close for a stressless 2-putt, right? So that's the decision-making process, and being able to just think clearly about the situation that you're in and how to get the best outcome and what's your risk reward as well. You know, what do you need to do in that situation? Mm-hmm. And it could be different, say in match play or medal play, or, you know what I'm saying?
What are the things that come to your mind when you think of bad decisions on the golf course?
Well, it's definitely club selection.
Uh-huh.
And it's also the decisions, the choice about what kind of shot to play, depending where you are. It's also knowing your own capabilities. So, for example, let's say it's a shorter shot and the pin is, let's say it's up close. Mm-hmm. Do you have the shot in your bag where you can hit a little high shot that's going to stop pretty well? Or do you need to kind of bump and run it up there, even though it's, it's a front pin? But maybe that's your better shot because you don't have that little high pitch shot. So it's knowing the shots that you've got.
Yeah, I play with people a lot. I mean, we're not tournament players. We're not competitive players. We're just weekend guys. And it seems to me that a lot of people just don't understand the idea of different ways to get the ball to the green. They think they always have to lob it up and try to make it land perfectly and stop, as opposed to all the other instructors that I hear from and talk about, no, you just let the ball roll as long as you can. You don't always have to try to flop it because it's too exacting of a shot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Well, some of it is, I think we have to know our own capabilities. We need to know the distances our clubs go. Mm-hmm. Some people prefer, you might prefer your hybrid to taking your iron in a given lie or a distance, and like that's okay. Your ego could get involved. What are you hitting a hybrid for, man? It's like, and so their ego gets involved, and they make a bad decision, and they hit a club that they're really uncomfortable with.
Right.
So I think when we talk about playing within yourself and your own capabilities, I'm just reminded of, I had a friend who did an Aikido exam. Yeah. And there's a part of that test where you do some freestyle and you're supposed to kind of have a variety of techniques, but it's a pretty exact. I mean, it's a good practice, to do this demonstration of freestyle, but it makes people nervous, Mm-hmm. And anyways, my friend did her test. It was like blue or brown belt. It wasn't even a black belt test, and she kept in her freestyle doing the same technique over and over, and she felt so terrible when her test was over. She's like, she's sure she flunked. She felt like, oh God, why'd you just do the same thing, the same technique over and over? And I'll never forget the sensei saying to her, it would have been nice to see some variety, but you know what? I have to tell you something. If you got in a tight situation, you have one technique that you will do. One technique, and you will do it, and you'll do it well, and it will come out without you thinking about it, and you'll do it powerfully and beautifully. So be happy that you got one technique. Now keep working on it so you can have some, add another one and another one. And in a while you'll have variety, but work on each one till you got them all as good as you got that one technique, because you did beautifully on that technique. Well, that was a neat reframe, and I learned a lot from it, right? So if we take that to golf, it's like, hey, if you've got one or two clubs or shots that you can really rely on, you're good with them and you feel good about it, and in a tense situation or tight situation on the golf course, you can pull that club and that shot off, well, then do it and be happy that you've got that. Now practice and work on adding a different shot, or a flop shot. Maybe you don't have that one yet, but work on that until you get really comfortable with that. Add that one in. Now add another one in. That's how you're going to improve. But definitely we've all got some favorite clubs and shots. That's a good thing. It's nice to have some place to fall back on. And then as we practice, to know that we want to add that kind of confidence with another club and another kind of shot. Yeah.
We, on Golf Smarter Mulligans last week, we replayed the interview with Manuel de la Torre.
I loved him.
Oh man,
he was in my hometown. I grew up in Milwaukee, and
that's right.
I got
59 years at the Milwaukee Country Club.
Oh my God! And I have to tell you, he was a true gentleman. And after I was, I'd become a pro, and I would visit my folks in Milwaukee, and it was something. He never charged pros for a lesson. If you were a pro, he just worked with you, and that just blew me away, because I remember. I went out there. I was so excited to work with Manuel, and I was ready to pay him whatever he charged, right? And he's like, "Oh no, I don't charge pros."
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, one of the things that he talked about in that episode was having a high, low, short, long shot with every club. Right? It's like Can you, and we've had some of the old school guys that have been on the show. They talk about how their teachers in the old days would say, all right, now give me all those 4 shots with your 7-iron. Now give me all those 4 shots with your 5-iron, right? Mm-hmm. And your wedge. I want low, high. I want it to release. I want it to stop. I want it, and now give me different distances on each of those. You've got to have all of those in your bag.
Well, let me say this about that. I absolutely agree. That would be the ideal. And I mean, growing up in Milwaukee, we had a 3, 5, 7, and 9-iron in your bag. That's all you had. I mean, who had a 4-iron or a 6-iron, right? We didn't have an 8-iron. We didn't have 56 and a 60. And we just didn't have that in those days. So when I grew up, I had a lot of different capabilities, particularly with my 7 and 9-iron for shorter shots and chip shots and pitch shots. And I do think, and I like people to know how they can vary the loft on a club and play different shots with the same club. So ideally, I agree with that. On the other hand, I think that for your average player, it can be a little overwhelming to expect that of themselves and to think that they can do all of that. Now, you could take it as a project. And I always like to take golf improvement, whatever it is, as a project. I'll tell a student, this is your project for the next month, or your project, for the next period of time. And so maybe your project is to learn how to do 4 different shots, high, low, short, long, with your 9-iron. Or with whatever club that is, know how to do a punch shot with your 6-iron as well as a full swing shot, low into the wind and a nice high 6-iron. But take that as a project, one club, and get good with those variations on that one club for the next month. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So
I like that.
I think you can develop it if you take it one at a time. And then it's great. Then, over time, you will have a variety of shots with different clubs in your bag. But I don't think you can take it. It's too overwhelming all at once. And a lot of us, I think it's so funny how most golfers compare themselves to tour pros, which is crazy because tour pros do this for a living. And they play 4 rounds almost every week. And they're playing practice rounds, and they're getting all the special equipment, and they're hitting 1 million balls and 1 million putts. Most of us, if we get out there once a week, right? Most golfers or whatever it is. I mean, no one is playing and practicing in the quantities, much less the qualities that professionals are. Yet we compare ourselves to their par and to what they can do. Now, they have those capabilities, and they really need those capabilities. For all the situations they get in and the different grasses and the different conditions and the different weather. And it's nice for your average golfer to have some choices. And I absolutely train my students to have different capabilities and choices. But, I don't think we can be too ambitious about it. I think we have to take it in amounts that we can handle. And it's usually kind of one club at a time. But it's also knowing the principles. Once you know the principles, you could hit a higher 6-iron and a higher 9-iron. And you could hit a lower 9-iron and a lower 6-iron, right? When you know the principles. So you can also approach it from the principles about how to hit high, low, left, right shots.
Fascinating. And talking about Golf Smarter Mulligans, let's find out now what's going to be on this week. As we continue to go back into our library of interviews that are no longer available, but still incredibly helpful for golfers of all skill levels, we're joined once again by Phil Kenyon, principal owner of Herald Swash Putting. In this conversation from the UK in 2009, Phil talks in detail about all things putting, including how the ball comes off the putter and why C-groove technology used in Yes putters was so revolutionary at the time. Unfortunately, Harold Swash, founder of Yes Putters and the inventor of C-groove technology, passed away in 2016, but his excellence in putting still exists.
The first thing that we're looking to do is obviously align the golf club to the target point. We're looking for the club face to be square to the target at both the setup and the strike position. The second fundamental we like to see is the develop a path where the club face is square to the path. So at the moment of impact, for the club to be running down the target line. I mean, in reality, the putting stroke will have a slight arc to that stroke, but through impact, we're looking for the club to be running down the target line and club face square to the path. Now, to help achieve those fundamentals, when I talk about a neutral setup position, we want our eyes in an optimum position, which kind of run down the ball to target line, running parallel to that line, and the alignment of the upper body to be neutral as well, because that can influence the path of the stroke. So when we talk about neutral, we're talking about neutral body parts, parallel alignment, good eye positioning, those type of aspects.
So in my research, I found out that Yes Putters is no longer in business, but Phil is still teaching putting excellence under the name of Swash Putting. And you can click on the link in our blog post or the show notes to get there. Also on the blog post at golfsmarter.com, we've included a short video of Phil talking about face balance putters that he just made a few months ago. Doesn't matter how you get there, because you'll want to hear the entire conversation with Phil on episode 90 of Golf Smarter Mulligans, featuring Phil Kenyon, putting instructor to a long list of tour professionals, and it's being released this Friday. Both Golf Smarter and Golf Smarter Mulligans are free and available wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Please subscribe, and when you do, you'll be notified immediately when your brand new episode of either show has downloaded to your favorite podcast app. How you been, Jamie? We haven't even checked in yet.
We get going, Fred. I love talking with you.
I know. It's like I don't have to take any notes. I'm just going to say hello, and we'll take it from there. But how are you?
How am I? I know you're asking me that question because I had an accident. I had a bicycle accident about 3.5 months ago. Thank you very much. Well, it was a pretty nasty accident, and actually, I should talk about how it happened. First of all, I was riding it was before sunset, and I'd been riding for a while. Just a nice bike ride Sunday afternoon. But at that point, I was riding directly into the sun. So I was literally blinded by the sunlight. The other thing is I was listening to an audiobook, which I love audiobooks. So I had my headphones in. I'm listening to my audiobook, and I was in a really intense part of the chapter or whatever.
So you were totally focused on what you were listening to.
Yes. So that's the point. My mind was distracted because I was so into my book. And I was blinded by the sunlight, literally very blinded. And so I wasn't as present as I might be. And next thing you knew, I was flying over a speed bump. It was painted yellow. I didn't see it. And I only noticed when I was halfway up in the air flying. And all of a sudden it brought me to the moment. And I was like, oh, no. And then it happened fast. Maybe I could have flown and landed. I don't know. But I, started squeezing the handbrake on, not hard and fast, but, just started. But it was enough to pitch me forward. So I flew over the handlebars and I landed on my chin. And I fractured my chin in a very big way to the extent that the surgeon had to put a plate in my chin. And it went up and it broke both my jaws as well. So... Incredibly enough, I was conscious during the whole thing. I remember it all, and I just,
ouch.
Oh, it hurt so bad. But I sat up, and
that's the bad side of being conscious.
Yeah, right. That was the bad side of being conscious. The good side was I was like, I think I'm okay. I had my helmet on. That was good too. So, but anyways, I ended up in the ER, and then I ended up in an ambulance getting transported to a bigger hospital with an oral surgeon, and I had emergency surgery and I had my jaws wired shut, which I really don't wish on truly my worst enemy. It's not it's very unpleasant. I mean, in fact, some people can't handle it. And I had my moments because your mouth is wired shut. You can't open it. You can't really eat. You're barely sucking in any food, like liquids. It's difficult. That's another whole procedure. And hungry and freaked out. And the pain was at about 100 on a scale of 10. And you can't breathe. I couldn't breathe very well. And it really drove home how important our breathing is in terms of calming anxiety. And the anxiety of having your mouth wired shut is very, very intense. Because you can't talk, you can't breathe, you can't eat, and it's claustrophobic, and it's scary, and plus pain. So it was a very, very difficult period that lasted almost a month.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it was tough. And then,
how long did it take you to not just get back on the course, but to be interested in getting back on getting your clubs out?
That took a couple of months. I mean, it's only been 3.5 months. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, I'm doing remarkably well, I must say. And I mean, I thank the good the good surgeon and medical treatment I've had. And there's actually sort of yoga and PT for my jaws and all I'm doing.
Sure.
And my whole body, because especially with the jaws wired shut, it's like my neck was just straight. I wasn't turning my head. I couldn't open my mouth for quite a while. And even afterwards, I had these big, I call them industrial strength wire arch bars still in my mouth, because I had to have bands to keep my jaws staying in place so they would continue to heal. And I'm not totally healed yet, but I'm doing pretty well. And I've had to regain the mobility and opening my mouth, and my teeth have hurt a lot. So it's been, I'm still on the road to recovery, but I'm doing quite well.
You sound great.
Yeah, thank you. I actually look normal. I got my smile back, and I've got I could share with everybody that I've used getting my golf swing back, turning right, turning left, backswing, follow through, just mobility, getting my neck muscles moving again. I've used a lot of my Bliss Fitness, balance, lengthen, integrate, stretch, strengthen, some PT work, some continued sort of muscle and bone work, and getting my cranial bones and all those things. I mean, it's been a big deal, but it's also been self-management. And especially in those first days and weeks, I mean, my whole nervous system was in trauma, as you can imagine, pain and trauma. But I knew that I couldn't stay in that kind of activated stress state, that it was important to get my nervous system calmed down, that it was very much a mind and emotional game. I needed to get myself centered and calm and balanced and grounded and relaxed as much as possible. So doing all kinds of energy practices and the physical practices that I just mentioned really helped to get my nervous system out of trauma. It helped the healing. It helped me to sleep. It helped me not to just be in complete depression or anger, like, why did this happen to me? And it's like it did. It's like I had to deal with it, and I wanted to heal, and I wanted to recover well. And then also to have the oomph to do exercises to regain mobility. And I've been using, again, all these exercises and golf bliss, the motions of golf, getting fluidity back, and, taking it in increments like I was just talking about. You can't get it all at once. It's like, I got to golf. No, that doesn't work. I got to heal. I got to take it as it comes, but that I have a lot of input into my healing process. So it's, I've been a partner in my own healing, and we have to be. So this is all the self-management, and boy, did it come home to me in the biggest way possible, and just in these last 3.5 months, so that I am doing as well as I am. Yeah.
Wow.
So these things that we practice are, they're to play better golf, but they're for life. We talk about that. Golf is life, martial arts, our practices, yoga, breathing. It's like, boy, when the rubber hits the road, and my chin hit the road in a really awful way. Literally, being grateful. We talk about gratitude. I wrote an article about this. People talk about gratitude. That's a high frequency feeling. It's like, well, how do I find gratitude? But you know what? Even right when it happened, I was grateful I had my helmet on. I was grateful I could get to the ER. I was grateful I could, I was even grateful that I could have surgery, that I had health insurance, that, all these things that I was conscious that other things weren't injured worse than they were. I mean, I had bloody road rash, but I didn't have any more other broken bones. You have to be grateful for what is. And, and that gratitude is something positive. So, let's say on the golf course, we're in trouble. We just had a blow up holes. We had disaster. You know what? I'm out and playing golf. I can swing. I can make a shot. We have to be grateful for those things. And that keeps us in that higher frequency, gets us back to center and calm. And, it brings us back to, I'm out here. I'm playing golf. Oh, let's enjoy it. breathe. Oh, now I'm making better swings. What do you know? I'm being nice to my playing partners. I'm not being grumbly and negative, and they start not liking playing with me, and so you can't really separate anything, and we can't separate what we do on the golf course and what happens. I mean, I had a disaster, and I've had to manage it.
Oh, man. We could probably do an entire episode on recovering from adversity in golf.
Yes.
You're clearly a phenomenal example of that. I guess the next person that comes to mind as a phenomenal example of recovering from adversity from an injury would be Tiger, I guess.
Yeah.
Or Ben Hogan was also an amazing story.
Ben Hogan did it. The Babe did it. She had cancer, and she had cancer surgery, came back. I mean, she did die too young, but before then, she actually came back. She played and won a couple of majors with a colostomy, a cancerous colostomy, and she played and swung. Yeah, with a colostomy bag. I don't know if that's known about her. So, yeah, absolutely. Stacy Lewis, scoliosis. I mean, you need your spine, and you need a good spinal axis to rotate around. She spent a number of years in her childhood in body casts. The last thing in the world you'd expect her to become is a professional golfer and major champion. So she's an example of it. We don't often think about these things, but hardly anybody has a straight road, and most of us don't play completely boring golf and have just completely boring lives that everything's just hunky-dory all the time. It's not like that. So we do have to have the skills of self-management and disaster management or adversity management in order to keep functioning and to recover. We talk about that. It's a recovery shot on the golf course. Rescue clubs, right? That's what we originally called the first sort of pre-hybrids were called rescue clubs. So, I've had to really live that out, and I've been very grateful for all of my training, the things that I know. But being grateful has been important, and grateful that I have the skills. But then, in the worst, when I was really, really afraid and really in pain and really bummed, it's like, you know what? You got to practice this stuff. You got to do it. You got to make those good, you still, I've still had to do it. It's not enough to know about it. We have to do these things and practice these things. And then in the worst situations, how do we check our mind? How do we check our emotions? How do we rise? We talk about rising to the occasion, rising to lower scores, rising to better recovery. And we are all asked to do that. And we're asked to do that collectively right now during COVID and, everything going on. So, that's really what it's all about. And when we say a round of golf is like life, golf really is like life. And that's what's so interesting about it, and you never know what's going to happen. I didn't know on a nice Sunday afternoon on a nice little bike ride a couple miles from my house that I was going to go fly over a speed bump, right? Yeah.
Tell me one more time what Bliss Fitness stands for.
Bliss is from my teacher. I want to acknowledge her, Joanne Kettler, but I've been developing it for many years. Bliss means balance. B is balance. We know we need that in golf. Lengthen. And lengthen is about lengthening our muscles, the space between our vertebrae, our range of motion, ultimately lengthening our shots, right? Distance. Balance, lengthen. I is integrate. And for me, integration is the left and right sides of our bodies, our left and right hemispheres of our brain, our lower body and upper body, motion and action, our kind of inner body, our breath, our energy, our self-talk with our outer physical muscles and swing. And action or visualization and execution, all those need to be integrated. Balance, lengthen, integrate, stretch, and strengthen.
Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
That is great.
My golf fitness is called 18 Holes of Golf Bliss, and they're 18 exercises. I actually have quite a few more, but and I call it Make Your Golf Club Your Health Club. So the exercises actually help us to do all that using our golf club, and then they work directly into our swing so that we're swinging with extension and stability because we've strengthened and stretched all the muscles in our in our legs, our strong base muscles, our legs, our hip flexors, the muscles that hold us up in our back, the sacrospinalis muscles, but anyway, so so that we can make good swings, extension back and through the ball and down the target line, full follow through. We have the flexibility and the range of motion to do these things. Make your golf club your health club. And it's a very active fitness, golf fitness system that accomplishes all the things you do maybe in a gym, but using your golf club and do it at home. I've been teaching this, you can do it anywhere, anytime, any weather, any season for over 20 years. And it turns out that I'm teaching it in my golf mastery schools on Zoom. We can do these exercises and work on our golf swings and work on our fitness and our focus. The mental games were built in. So we can do them during COVID. I've been teaching a lot, actually, teaching a lot of golf, surprisingly, online.
Awesome.
Yeah, whether it's in a room in your house that's big enough to swing, or go outside in the yard, take your mobile phone or your mobile device, and it's incredible how we can really practice anywhere, anytime, and develop our physical and mental fitness, and that helps our emotional intelligence along the way. Ultimately, with good swings, good swings, and these are things that when you're on the golf course, do it right here and now. This is where I need it. And it's legal because it's all you, your body, mind, and golf club, which is really all you are legally allowed on the golf course.
And how can people get in touch with you or find you online?
They can find me best ways on my website, which it'll take you to the same place. There's 2 URLs. So one is kiaigolf.com, KIAI golf, GOLF.com, or the centered, the centered way, thecenteredway.com. Takes you to the same place, kiaigolf.com, thecenteredway.com. Just go there, look around, lots of stuff there, and go on YouTube. Also, on my website, just sign up, get my emails. I've really been doing a lot of really cool golf mastery schools, I call them, through Zoom. And, a lot of people are playing golf now. I will say this, talk about adversity. The golf industry has been trying to grow the game for as long as I've been around, and it still doesn't grow.
And it just took a global pandemic to make it work.
It only took a global pandemic. All of a sudden, everyone's playing golf. It's a sport we can do. Yeah.
I read the other day that there were 50 million more rounds in 2020 than there were in 2019.
Isn't that
in the United States?
Yeah, that's
in the United States.
It's stunning. So, things aren't what we think they are, right?
Right.
Who'd have thunk that golf is finally growing after all this time and in a big way? Global pandemic's going to help. The game of golf is quite incredible. Yeah. I should say people could also reach me. I actually answer my phone, or I answer my voicemails, and I'll give people that too. 760-492-GOLF. 760-492-4653.
Okay. Awesome. Mm-hmm. Jamie, it is so great to hear your voice. It's been a long time since you've been on the show, and I'm so, so glad that you've recovered and that it wasn't as more serious than it was, because it was definitely serious, but that you're going to be okay. It's just great to hear your voice. Happy New Year.
Thank you very much. And I must say, it's great to be able to speak. I couldn't speak for a month, and it's pretty interesting being a speaker who can't speak. So I am very happy to be able to talk, and I always love talking with you. And I just wish a very happy New Year and lots of good centered golfing to everyone this year.
Good centered golfing. Good suggestion. Good person. Thanks, Jamie. Always a big fan. Hey, if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions on what you want to hear on upcoming interviews or upcoming episodes on the Golf Smarter podcast, I'd love to hear from you. All you need to do is find me at Golf Smarter on social media, or click on the Hey Fred button at golfsmarter.com.